Marcus Chen sat on the cracked concrete steps of his apartment building, watching the morning rain create small rivers in the pothole-marked street. His prosthetic leg ached in the damp weather. A constant reminder of the Battle of Kepler 442b, where humanity had fought alongside 12 alien species against the Void Swarm. That was 3 years ago, but the scars ran deeper than metal and flesh. The package arrived without warning. A sleek silver transport pod descended from the gray clouds, its anti-gravity engines humming with technology that still amazed him. The delivery drone was unlike anything from Earth's postal service. Its crystalline body reflected rainbow patterns, and when it spoke, the voice carried harmonics that made his teeth vibrate. Marcus Chen, Terran Defense Force, Service Number 7742 Delta 9. Marcus stood slowly, his prosthetic clicking against the concrete. That's me. Delivery from His Imperial Magnificence, Zorak the Eternal, Supreme Ruler of the Andromeda Coalition. Please place your palm on the scanning surface for biometric verification. A blue light emerged from the drone's core. Marcus pressed his calloused palm against it, feeling a warm, tingling sensation. The light shifted to green, and the drone's body split open like a flower blooming in fast forward. Inside sat a containment unit the size of a small refrigerator, made from what looked like living metal that pulsed with its own heartbeat. Delivery confirmed. Warning. Contents are sentient and require immediate attention. Instructions are embedded in the container's neural interface. Good fortune, Warrior Marcus Chen. The drone reassembled itself and shot skyward, disappearing into the cloud cover before Marcus could ask any questions. He stared at the container, which had somehow become heavier and lighter at the same time. The living metal felt warm under his hands, and he could swear he heard something moving inside. His neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, peeked through her window curtains. In the 3 years since he'd returned from the war, she'd grown used to strange things happening around the quiet veteran. First, it was the alien technology integrated into his prosthetic. Then the occasional visits from non-human diplomats. But a delivery from an alien emperor was new, even for Marcus. Inside his small apartment, Marcus set the container on his kitchen table. The surface immediately came alive, with swirling patterns of light that formed symbols he somehow understood, despite never seeing them before. The neural interface the drone mentioned was apparently more advanced than he'd imagined. Greetings, Marcus Chen of Terra. Your actions during the Kepler conflict have earned you great honor among the Coalition species. This gift represents our highest respect for your courage and your species' remarkable capacity for sacrifice. The symbols shifted, showing images of the battle where Marcus had lost his leg. He watched himself diving in front of a Void Swarm energy blast, meant for a group of wounded Zephyrian soldiers, their butterfly-like wings torn and bleeding. The memory still made his chest tight. The creature within this container is a lunar wolf of Andromeda Prime. She has chosen you as her companion, a bond that occurs perhaps once in 1,000 cycles. Her name is Sky, and she carries within her the memories of her pack and the wisdom of her species. More images flowed across the surface. Creatures that looked like wolves but moved like liquid shadow, with fur that shifted color based on their emotions and eyes that held intelligence far beyond any Earth animal. They were beautiful and alien, with 6 legs and bioluminescent markings that pulsed along their spines. Sky was injured in the same battle where you showed your courage. She has chosen to bond with you because she recognizes a kindred spirit. Your species and hers share something rare in the galaxy: the willingness to sacrifice oneself for others, even strangers. The container's surface grew warm, and a seam appeared around its middle. Marcus stepped back as the top half lifted away, with a soft hiss of escaping atmosphere. Inside, curled on a bed of something that looked like glowing moss, was the most beautiful creature he'd ever seen. Sky was the size of a large dog, but her proportions were entirely alien. Her 6 legs were elegant and powerful, ending in paws that seemed too large, until Marcus realized they were designed for climbing. Her fur was deep blue-black, shot through with streaks of silver that pulsed with a gentle inner light. But it was her eyes that took his breath away. Large, intelligent, and colored like distant nebulae. She lifted her head and looked directly at him. When she spoke, her voice came not from her mouth, but directly into his mind, carrying emotions and concepts that human language couldn't express. You are the one who shields others from harm. I smell the metal in your body and the pain you carry. We are both wounded warriors, Marcus Chen. Perhaps together we can find peace. Marcus felt tears running down his cheeks without realizing when he'd started crying. For 3 years, he'd been alone with his memories and his guilt. The nightmares came every time he closed his eyes. Visions of friends who hadn't made it home, of creatures from the void swarm that still haunted his dreams. The alien wolf understood his pain without explanation. Sky rose gracefully and stepped from the container. Her movement was fluid, like water taking the shape of a wolf. She padded across his kitchen floor and pressed her head against his remaining biological leg. The contact sent warmth through his entire body, and for the first time in years, the constant ache in his prosthetic faded. The Zephyrians you saved still sing songs of your bravery. The Crystalline Collective has named a star cluster in your honor. Yet you see yourself as broken. This confuses me. I couldn't save them all, Marcus whispered, running his fingers through her incredibly soft fur. So many died because I wasn't fast enough, wasn't strong enough. Sky's bioluminescent markings pulsed brighter, shifting from blue to warm gold. In my pack, we have a saying. The wolf who saves one pup has saved the future. You humans think in numbers, but the universe thinks in possibilities. Each life you preserved creates ripples across time. Marcus knelt down, bringing himself closer to her level. Why did you choose me? The message said you had a choice, because you carry the same burden I do. I was the alpha of my pack, responsible for leading them into battle against the void swarm. Many of my packmates fell before we learned their weaknesses. I see in your mind that you blame yourself for deaths that were inevitable, just as I did. She showed him images through their mental connection. Scenes of her pack fighting creatures of living shadow and hunger. He saw her making impossible decisions, sacrificing some to save others, carrying the weight of leadership in a war where there were no perfect choices. But I learned something during the battle where we first encountered humans. Your species does not fight for territory or resources, or even survival. You fight for ideas, for concepts like justice and freedom that exist only in minds. This is why the Coalition values you so highly. The rain outside had stopped, and afternoon sunlight streamed through his window, casting rainbow patterns through the residual atmospheric disturbances left by the alien transport. Sky's fur reflected the light, creating new colors that had no names in any human language. Marcus felt something shifting inside his chest, a loosening of the knots he'd carried since the war. What happens now? Now we learn from each other. I will show you how my people process grief and trauma. You will show me how humans turn pain into strength. Together, we will discover why the universe brought us together. That evening, as Marcus prepared dinner for 2 very different metabolisms, he found himself smiling for the first time in months. Sky had curled up on his couch, her markings cycling slowly through shades of contentment. When she spoke, her mental voice carried amusement. You know, Marcus Chen, I believe this partnership will be quite extraordinary. Outside, the city lights came on, and somewhere in the distance, ships from a dozen worlds moved through Earth's sky. The galaxy had become a much larger place since first contact. But somehow, with Sky's presence filling the empty spaces in his apartment and his heart, it also felt more like home. 3 weeks after Sky's arrival, Marcus discovered that living with an alien wolf was nothing like the nature documentaries he'd watched as a child. For starters, she was a terrible cook but an excellent food critic. She'd watch him prepare meals with the intensity of a master chef, offering mental commentary on his technique. Your species has an unusual relationship with food preparation. You combine ingredients that should not work together, yet create something greater than its parts. This meat and plant combination you call stir-fry is surprisingly pleasant. Marcus laughed, something he'd been doing more often lately. Wait until you try pizza. Their bond had grown stronger each day, but it wasn't without challenges. Sky's sleep cycle followed 2 moons that didn't exist on Earth. leaving her restless during human nighttime hours. Marcus often woke to find her pacing the apartment, her bioluminescent markings cycling through anxious patterns of orange and red. The real breakthrough came during Marcus's first nightmare since her arrival. He was back on Kepler 442b, surrounded by the screaming chaos of battle. Void swarm creatures poured from dimensional tiers like living darkness, their forms shifting between solid and shadow. In the dream, his prosthetic leg was flesh again, but it didn't matter, because he was still too slow, too weak. He watched helplessly as Private Johnson disappeared into a creature's maw, as Sergeant Williams was torn apart by claws made of condensed hatred. Marcus woke, gasping, his sheets soaked with sweat, his prosthetic sending phantom pain signals through nerves that no longer existed. But instead of the familiar crushing weight of isolation, he felt Sky's presence in his mind like a warm light in dark water. You are not there. You are here. With me. In safety. Her mental voice carried the scent of alien flowers and the sound of wind through crystal trees. Would you like me to show you how my people deal with dream echoes of battle? Dream echoes? The memories that return when our minds rest. My pack developed techniques over thousands of years to transform these echoes from weapons against us into teachers. Sky padded over to the bed and placed one of her six-toed paws on his chest. Through their connection, she shared not words but experiences, sensations of running through moonlight, the satisfaction of a successful hunt, the warmth of packmates sleeping in a pile. But underneath these positive memories were darker ones, scenes from battles that made the human void conflict look small. My species has fought for survival for millennia. We learned that memories of trauma become less powerful when shared, when transformed from private suffering into collective wisdom. She guided him through a meditation technique that was part memory exercise, part emotional alchemy. Instead of suppressing the nightmare, she taught him to examine it, to find the threads of courage and compassion woven through the horror. You see only your failures, but observe what else was present in that moment. Through her perspective, Marcus saw the battle differently. Yes, he had been too slow to save everyone, but his actions had created a rallying point. Other soldiers had seen him dive in front of enemy fire to protect alien allies, and that moment of sacrifice had rippled outward. The Zephyrian soldiers he'd saved had gone on to develop new tactics that saved hundreds more lives. Humans possess something rare in the galaxy, Sky continued, her markings now pulsing with deep purple thoughtfulness. Most species fight to preserve their own kind, but in every battle report from the Kepler conflict, there are accounts of humans sacrificing themselves for alien soldiers they had met only hours before. The Coalition strategists still study these reports, trying to understand the psychology that drives such behavior. The next morning brought an unexpected test of their partnership. Marcus was at the corner grocery store when his neural implant, a piece of alien technology integrated into his prosthetic, began receiving an emergency broadcast. Emergency Protocol 7. Void Swarm Dimensional Breach detected in Sector 7 Alpha. All available Coalition forces respond immediately. Marcus felt his blood turn to ice water. Sector 7 Alpha was the business district, only 6 miles from his neighborhood. The Void Swarm was back. He ran home as fast as his prosthetic would allow, bursting through his apartment door to find Sky already alert, her fur standing on end, and her markings flashing urgent red patterns. I felt your fear through our bond. The shadow hunters have returned. A dimensional breach, Marcus said, grabbing his emergency kit from the closet. Despite being discharged from active duty, he'd never stopped preparing for the possibility that the war might come home. They're calling all Coalition forces, but the nearest response team is 20 minutes away. 20 minutes is too long. If the breach widens, the shadow hunters will spread exponentially. Marcus strapped on his combat gear, his hands moving with muscle memory from 1,000 drills. But as he reached for his weapon, Sky blocked his path. You are no longer a soldier, Marcus Chen. Your duty now is to the living, not to past battles. People are going to die if someone doesn't. Yes. And you cannot save them all. But perhaps you can save some. The distinction hit him like a physical blow. She was right. He couldn't close a dimensional breach or fight void swarm creatures with military tactics. But he could do what humans did best: find an impossible solution to an unsolvable problem. Marcus grabbed his tablet and pulled up the city's infrastructure networks. His post-war job with the municipal engineering department had given him access to systems most people never thought about. Water mains, electrical grids, subway tunnels. What are you planning? The void swarm creatures are made of exotic matter that's unstable in normal space-time, Marcus said, his fingers flying over the tablet's surface. They need a certain amount of dimensional energy to maintain cohesion. If I can create an electromagnetic pulse strong enough to disrupt their quantum structure. He was already moving, grabbing tools and equipment. Sky followed him to his building's basement, where he began ripping open electrical panels. This is incredibly dangerous. Human electromagnetic fields are not compatible with exotic matter interactions. I know, Marcus said, connecting cables in configurations that would horrify any electrician. But the city's power grid connects to the fusion plant downtown. If I can create a feedback loop through the subway's electrical systems, I can generate a pulse that covers the entire breach area. The energy required would likely cause a blackout across the city. Better than having creatures from another dimension eating people. Sky's markings shifted to gold and blue. Colors Marcus had learned indicated admiration mixed with concern. Your species consistently chooses the harder path when it leads to protecting others. This explains much about why you are valued allies. The work took 40 minutes of frantic improvisation. Marcus rewired subway transformers, rerouted power from 3 residential blocks, and jury-rigged a control system using parts from his coffee maker and the smart components of his prosthetic leg. Sky served as his assistant, her 6 limbs allowing her to hold multiple tools while he worked. This should not function according to any known principles of engineering, she observed as Marcus activated his improvised device. Human engineering isn't always about known principles, Marcus replied, watching readouts cascade across his tablet. Sometimes it's about making things work because they have to work. The pulse, when it came, lasted only 3 seconds. Every light in the city flickered. Car alarms went off for miles, and electronic devices hiccuped across 2 time zones. But according to the emergency broadcasts, the dimensional breach collapsed instantly, taking the emerging void swarm creatures with it. That evening, as the city's power grid slowly returned to normal, Marcus sat on his couch with Sky curled beside him. His tablet showed dozens of messages from coalition officials, requests for interviews, and commendations from alien governments he'd never heard of. You understand now why my species chose to ally with yours, Sky said, her mental voice warm with satisfaction. When faced with an impossible problem, most species either flee or accept defeat. Humans invent a third option. We're too stubborn to know when we're beaten, Marcus said, scratching behind her ears in the spot that made her markings cycle through happy colors. Perhaps. But your stubbornness is matched by your creativity and your willingness to sacrifice for others. My pack has a new saying, learned from observing human behavior. When the hunt seems hopeless, ask what a human would do. Then do something even more impossible. Marcus felt warmth spreading through his chest, different from the emotional healing Sky had been helping him with. This was pride. Not in his own actions, but in his species. For the first time since the war, he understood what it meant to be human in a galaxy full of aliens. Not better than them, not worse, but different in ways that mattered. Tomorrow, there will be more challenges, Sky continued, her markings settling into peaceful blue-green patterns. More problems that require impossible solutions. Are you ready to show the universe what humans can do? Marcus smiled and reached for his tablet, already thinking about the messages from coalition officials. Maybe it was time to stop hiding from his past and start building a future worthy of the sacrifice his friends had made. We're just getting started, he said. And meant it. 6 months after the dimensional breach incident, Marcus Chen stood in the Coalition Embassy's main conference room, facing representatives from 47 different species. Sky sat beside him, her bioluminescent markings cycling through patterns of calm confidence. They had been invited to address the Galactic Crisis Response Committee, a body that dealt with threats to civilized space. The Zephyrian ambassador, her butterfly wings shimmering with nervous energy, spoke first. The Void Swarm has adapted. Our traditional containment methods are failing across 3 sectors. They appear to be learning from each encounter, developing resistance to our weapons and strategies. A crystalline being from the silicon quartz chimed like wind through mineral formations. 17 colonies have been evacuated. The economic cost alone threatens to destabilize the coalition's outer territories. Marcus listened to the litany of failures and losses, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. But now, instead of crushing him, it felt like purpose. Sky's mental voice touched his thoughts with warmth and encouragement. They need what only humans can provide, a solution that doesn't follow logical parameters. With respect, Marcus interrupted, standing slowly. You're all thinking about this wrong. The room fell silent. A representative from the hive collectives, whose species communicated through pheromone releases, asked, How so, human Marcus Chen? You're treating the Void Swarm like a military problem. Bigger guns, better shields, more ships. But they're not really a military force, are they? They're more like an infection, a disease of reality itself. Marcus activated the holographic display at the center of the table, showing tactical data from all Void Swarm encounters. Look at the pattern. They don't conquer territory, they consume it. They don't build or create, they digest existing matter and energy. Every time we fight them, we're feeding them more of what they need to grow stronger. The Andromedian delegate, a being of living gas contained within an environmental suit, pulsed with curiosity. Your point? What if instead of fighting them, we starved them? Sky's markings brightened to gold, indicating excitement. Through their bond, he felt her understanding and approval of where his thoughts were leading. The Void Swarm feeds on dimensional energy, Marcus continued. But that energy has to come from somewhere. They're not creating it. They're stealing it from our reality. What if we could create dimensional dead zones, areas where their exotic matter simply couldn't exist? An elderly Zenthurian scholar, her tentacles writhing with skepticism, spoke up. The energy requirements would be enormous. The physics involved are barely understood, even by our greatest minds. That's where human thinking comes in, Marcus said, pulling up new displays showing Earth's industrial capacity. We don't need to understand the physics perfectly. We just need to understand them well enough to build something that works. Over the next 3 hours, Marcus outlined a plan that was equal parts brilliant and insane. Using modified versions of the electromagnetic pulse technology he'd jury-rigged to close the dimensional breach on Earth, they could create a network of dimensional stability generators. These devices wouldn't destroy Void Swarm creatures directly. Instead, they would make it impossible for the creatures to maintain coherence in normal space-time. The engineering challenges were staggering. The power requirements alone would demand the output of multiple fusion reactors. The precision needed to synchronize the generators across multiple star systems was beyond current technology. Most species would have declared the project impossible and continued with conventional warfare. But Marcus wasn't most species. He was human. The Terran Industrial Consortium has been looking for a project worthy of our manufacturing capacity, he said, displaying technical specifications that made several alien engineers emit sounds of amazement. We can build these generators. We can build them fast, and we can build them cheap. But we'll need help with the exotic physics and the coordination protocols. What followed was the largest cooperative engineering project in galactic history. Human manufacturing, combined with Andromedian energy manipulation, Zephyrian quantum computing, and crystalline precision engineering, Sky served as more than just Marcus's companion. Her species' deep understanding of dimensional mechanics proved crucial to the project's success. This is why the universe brought us together, she told him one evening as they worked late in the project's Earth headquarters. My people understand the theoretical frameworks, but humans have the audacity to believe the impossible can be made possible. The first test came 3 months later, when a Void Swarm emergence was detected in the Kepler system. Instead of sending warships, the Coalition activated a single-dimensional stability generator that Marcus's team had positioned in orbit around Kepler 442c. The results exceeded their wildest hopes. The void swarm creatures materialized normally, but within minutes of entering the generator's field, they began to break apart at the quantum level. Not destroyed, but simply unable to maintain the exotic matter states that allowed them to exist in normal space. Within a year, a network of stability generators protected every major coalition world. The void swarm, faced with shrinking areas where they could safely manifest, retreated to the deep void between galaxies. For the first time in recorded history, civilized space was truly safe from interdimensional predators. The celebration at the Coalition Embassy lasted 3 days, with representatives from across known space gathering to honor the engineering feat. But for Marcus, the real victory was quieter and more personal. He stood in his apartment, looking out at a city that hummed with alien technology and human ingenuity, working in harmony. Sky lay curled on the couch, her markings cycling through content patterns of deep blue and silver. "You have found your purpose," she observed, her mental voice carrying satisfaction and affection. No longer the soldier carrying guilt, but the engineer building the future. "We found our purpose," Marcus corrected. "I couldn't have done any of this without you. Without understanding that my scars don't define me. That failure doesn't erase the value of trying. Humans have an expression about rising from ashes. My species has a similar concept. The idea that broken things, when properly healed, become stronger than they were before." Marcus settled beside her on the couch, feeling the warmth of their bond. Mental, emotional, and spiritual. "What do you think comes next?" Sky's markings shifted to the rainbow patterns she displayed when contemplating the future. "There are other threats in the universe. Other challenges that will require impossible solutions. The galaxy has learned something important from this experience, which is that humans are not strong because they are fearless. You are strong because you are afraid. And you act anyway. Most species flee from impossible odds or surrender to them. Humans look at impossible odds and ask, how do we make this work?" Through their connection, Marcus felt Sky sharing images of the stability generator network as seen from space. Thousands of points of light creating a web of safety across known space. Each generator was a testament to what could be accomplished when courage met creativity, when the refusal to accept defeat met the willingness to sacrifice for others. "The Coalition has named you Special Ambassador for Impossible Solutions," Sky continued, a note of amusement in her mental voice. "It is perhaps the most human job title ever created." Marcus laughed, scratching behind her ears. "Impossible solutions. I like that. Though I'm not sure one human can handle all the galaxy's impossible problems. You will not be alone. Other humans are being paired with coalition partners. Your success has shown the value of these bonds. Not just human creativity, but human creativity, guided by alien wisdom and supported by alien capabilities." Outside their window, a transport ship was landing at the embassy. Marcus could see alien diplomats disembarking alongside humans in coalition uniforms. The galaxy was changing, becoming something new. A true alliance, built not just on shared interests, but on shared values. "My pack has a legend about the end of winter," Sky continued, her markings settling into warm gold patterns. "They say that winter ends not when the cold retreats, but when the pack learns to create fire that burns regardless of the weather. You humans are that fire, Marcus Chen. You burn bright enough to warm the entire galaxy." That night, as Marcus slept peacefully for the first time in years, he dreamed not of battles lost but of challenges yet to come. In his dreams, he stood with Sky and partners like them. Human ingenuity bound to alien wisdom, creating solutions that neither species could achieve alone. The void swarm was gone, but the universe was vast and full of problems that conventional thinking couldn't solve. Somewhere out there were crises waiting for the particular kind of madness that humans called hope, and the particular kind of wisdom that came from beings who had learned to transform scars into strength. Marcus Chen, former soldier and current ambassador for impossible solutions, slept peacefully beside his alien partner, and dreamed of making the impossible possible. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to show the universe what humans could do when they refused to accept that something couldn't be done. In the Galactic database, his file now carried a new designation: Human, Specialist in Solutions Not Yet Invented. It was, he would have agreed if he were awake to read it, the perfect job description for someone who had learned that the best way to honor the dead was to dedicate your life to protecting the living. The galaxy was vast, but it was also full of friends who had learned that sometimes the most powerful weapon against the darkness was a human who simply refused to quit.